wind gusts expected to reach up to 70 miles per hour.
6 different wildfires raging right now.
Damage is already estimated in the hundreds of billions.
Several of the state's largest insurers either stopped or limited new policies.
These wildfires could be one of the most expensive natural disasters in U.S. history.
The deepening home insurance crisis.
Insurance crisis.
Insurance crisis.
Insurance crisis.
We are witnessing the most expensive natural disaster in the history of the United States, as 5 active wildfires burn in Los Angeles County, and it's an insurance nightmare. The Palisades fire alone has consumed about 42 square miles, nearly the size of the entire city of San Francisco. The scene in Pacific Palisades is apocalyptic. The fire incinerated at least 1,000 structures in the community located about 20 miles west of downtown Los Angeles. The before and after photos of this neighborhood are heartbreaking. You can see from this video from CBS correspondent Jonathan Vigliotti, that's the Palisades Village Starbucks, originally constructed in 1924, which now looks like someone dropped a bomb on it. And this is only a few city blocks from Santa Monica. Historic locations like the Will Rogers Ranch House and the Topanga Ranch Motel, built by newspaper tycoon William Randolph Hearst, are gone. And on the other side of the city, the Eaton Fire is only 10 miles northeast of downtown LA. This fire burned more than 10,000 acres and has burned an estimated 7,000 structures in and around Altadena. It seems like the entire community of Altadena is just gone. The iconic Rose Bowl has been repurposed as an evacuation shelter for large animals, and near the center of the metro area, the Sunset Fire got within a few hundred feet of Sunset Boulevard, forcing motorists to abandon their vehicles and run for their lives. And before you write jokes about LA traffic being the death of us in the comment section, you should know that in strong winds like there are in Southern California right now, the searing heat from the wildfires can suddenly burst outwards at the speed of Olympic sprinters and suddenly trigger a sudden ignition. Not to mention the embers can travel up to 2 miles. And that's why the fires have forced at least 180,000 people to evacuate, and an additional 200,000 people who are under evacuation warnings. Statewide, over 1.5 million people don't have power, and the wildfires have caused at least 24 deaths and a high number of significant injuries. Thousands of firefighters are struggling to keep up as 100-mile-an-hour wind gusts are literally fanning the flames, reducing entire neighborhoods to ash. And for the moment, while we can't stop the fire, we can talk about all of the legal implications, because there are a lot of them. Now, the first is who pays for the wildfires. In 2020, we talked about who's liable for wildfires started by arson, negligence, and gender reveal parties. Yes, you heard that right. The El Dorado wildfire started when a couple set off a smoke bomb during a photo shoot for their gender reveal party. As a result of their negligence, the fire burned 36 square miles of land in San Bernardino and killed a firefighter from the U.S. Forest Service. Refugio Jimenez Jr. set off the device in dry grass on a scorching hot day, and he eventually pleaded guilty to manslaughter. Obviously, Jimenez did not have enough money to foot the bill for all the damage, but sometimes the perpetrator does have deep pockets. For example, in 2018, a wildfire known as the Camp Fire destroyed the town of Paradise, California, and decimated large swaths of Butte County. State investigators determined that a major utility company, Pacific Gas and Electric, was responsible for the blaze. At the time, California was in the midst of a drought, and PG&E failed to maintain faulty equipment and didn't repair downed power lines, so when downed trees came into contact with PG&E property, it started the fire. The Camp Fire was the costliest wildfire in California history. It killed 84 people, destroyed over 14,000 structures, and led to industry losses over $14 billion. Approximately 70,000 people suffered extensive losses to their homes, property, and businesses. Now, PG&E should have known that its equipment could be dangerous to the community, especially in light of the drought conditions, but also PG&E has been saddled with equipment that's sometimes 100 years old. So sometimes they're doing the best with what they have. But PG&E filed for bankruptcy and eventually settled with plaintiffs for a record-breaking $13.5 billion. The company's Chapter 11 reorganization plan established the PG&E Fire Victim Trust to represent the interests of people who suffered losses, and the trust sued 20 former PG&E officers and directors for negligence. PG&E pleaded guilty to 84 counts of involuntary manslaughter for the deaths of the people who died in the Camp Fire. And while the PG&E Fire Victim Trust Fund was responsible for helping a lot of the victims rebuild their homes and lives, a lot of the victims were stunned when Uncle Sam sent them a big tax bill just because they collected a settlement. So what happened there? Well, you might recall the first Trump administration's Tax Cut and Jobs Act. Among the many corporate tax cuts that the TCJA included, one tax increase was that it removed attorney's fees as a tax-exempt expense. And that rule change had a big impact because it meant victims had to pay taxes on money that the lawyers collected. So if you got a settlement for $100,000, you were paying taxes on that settlement. And then you were paying taxes on the amount that your lawyers received. This effectively meant that the IRS was double dipping on settlement money meant for victims. However, recently, President Biden signed the Federal Disaster Relief Law in December of 2024 in order to fix that problem. The law prevented disaster victims from being taxed twice on the same settlement funds. For example, if the funds were already taxed when paid into a trust, they wouldn't be taxed again when distributed to the victims. And that legislation is retroactive, meaning that the federal government will give funds to the fire victims who had already paid taxes before the law took effect. The IRS will return about $512 million in taxes back to wildfire victims and survivors. The bill also shields payment recipients from losing many of their benefits because the government interpreted payouts as windfalls under the TCJA. And that means that people who lost insurance coverage subsidies through the ACA, veterans whose copay rates went up, and students who didn't qualify for student loans will now find relief. The fires are still raging, and no one knows if a corporation with deep pockets is responsible, let alone if there'll be settlement funds to compensate the victims. However, there are signs that the Eaton fire might have started near an electrical transmission tower in Eaton Canyon. Early photos and videos from residents show flames near the base of the tower before fire rapidly spread due to strong winds. SoCal Edison officials say that they have no information indicating that their equipment started the fire, but lawyers have already sent letters demanding that they preserve evidence. And look, if it was possible to sue Mother Nature, you'd know about it already. And many people have lost everything, and naturally they'll want to rebuild. However, people who live in areas at high risk of facing natural disasters are also up against surging insurance rates. And in California in particular, home insurance companies like State Farm are pulling out of the state altogether. Now, a standard homeowner's insurance policy covers destruction and damage caused by fire, including wildfire. After a fire, the insurance company will pay to rebuild or repair an insured home and remediate smoke damage. And this generally includes the outbuildings of the property. And a good policy will also provide people with a place to live by covering rent if the home is uninhabitable by a wildfire, plus additional living expenses incurred as a result. But all that depends on what's in the policy itself. And the amount of the insurance payout is determined by the terms of the policy itself. Many policies will not cover limits beyond $1 to $2 million unless the homeowner paid for more coverage. And climate change is intensifying weather events, leading to more frequent natural disasters. And as a result, the scale of the property destruction caused by natural disasters, including hurricanes, wildfires, floods, and earthquakes, has gone up exponentially. And the insurance industry is struggling to keep up as the cost of claims rise. And as a result, homeowners and businesses are now paying higher premiums. Now, before you pull out your pickaxes against the insurance industry, remember that if they pay out more in claims than they get through premiums, then they'll go out of business. And if climate change makes it impossible to make a profit by issuing insurance, then the insurance company will just simply pay out because they can't afford it. Which is what a lot of insurance companies are doing. They are increasingly pulling out from high-risk areas altogether, finding the potential for catastrophic losses unsustainable. And in the state of California, State Farm, Allstate, The Hartford, Miristar, Unitron, AmGuard, and Trans-Pacific have all refused to renew policies in the state or have closed up shop completely in 2024. This in turn reduces competition, leaving consumers with fewer options and often higher costs. Months before the disaster hit, thousands of people in Los Angeles were dropped from their home insurance policies with few reasonably priced alternatives. And obviously, it's not just California. Across the country in Florida, homeowners face some of the highest property insurance premiums in America. Rates have doubled and tripled between 2020 and 2024. And the potential for catastrophic losses from hurricanes is so great that major companies like State Farm and Allstate have reduced or completely stopped writing policies in Florida. But obviously, not everyone can afford to pay such high rates, nor bank on the goodwill of others. So what happens when homeowners can't get insurance? Well, some states, like California, have state-run insurers of last resort. In Florida, Citizens Property Insurance has seen a dramatic increase in policyholders as private insurers exit the market. And while this provides a safety net, it also places a heavy financial burden on the state. In California, when homeowners are rejected by 2 or more insurance companies, they can apply for a California Fair Access to Insurance Requirements Plan, or FAIR. FAIR has doubled the number of policies it issued over the past 4 years, but FAIR plans typically serve as insurers of last resort, and those plans come at a higher cost than regular home insurance in California and only offer limited coverage. And the FAIR plan's website says its exposure is at least $6 billion in Pacific Palisades alone. Now, FAIR isn't meant to be a complete insurance replacement, though. It's limited to a max of $3 million per house, and while that might sound like a lot, in West LA, that probably covers just the value of the land alone. Now, additionally, since 2018, California has also had consumer protection laws, which allow the state to declare a 1-year moratorium on an insurance company canceling or refusing renewal of an insurance policy in certain areas after a fire. The protection from cancellation or non-renewal lasts for 1 year from the date of the governor's emergency declaration. Governor Newsom has already declared a state of emergency and will most likely invoke this power for the 1-year moratorium. Now, if an insurance company is underpaying you or refusing to pay you altogether, whether it's for a fire, or a car crash, or a personal injury, you'll want a good lawyer. But if you want a great lawyer, let my firm, the Eagle team, help. We can represent you or help find you the right attorney. Because it's so important to talk to a lawyer right away so you can maximize your recovery. And by the way, we don't get paid unless you do, so there's absolutely nothing up front. So click on the link in the description or call the phone number that's on screen for a free consultation with my team. Because you don't just need a legal team, you need the Eagle team. And then there's the question of why is this happening and how did it happen so fast? Facebook and Twitter are flooded with lies and distorted information about who's to blame for this devastating fire and how it even got here in the first place. Which is why I think it's important to go straight to the source and ask the Californian fire itself. So fire, what are you doing here?
Devin,
what are you doing here? Hey man, look, I'm the one that's asking the questions here. How were you able to travel so fast? That's easy. I was crackling down a trail in Temescal Park. When I hopped over the 27, then went down PCH towards Santa Monica, before popping up on a toll road near Mount Wilson, and went towards the 210, where it becomes the 134 West. Then popped up again at that one place where the 210 meets the 5 in Sylmar. But then I was like, since I'm here, I might as well get off the 101 at sunset and burn the hills. All right, I've had enough of you. You're in incredibly bad taste. Now, what the fire didn't tell you is that in early 2024, unusually warm oceans led to one of the wettest storms in LA history.
Others, though, did require rescues, and we're going to show you one in about a minute. But first, I want to show you this video of the Sepulveda Basin. And the sheer volume of water there gives you an idea of how much rain has come down on the greater Los Angeles area. Which then led to a vegetation boom, which made the region look basically like Hawaii. But the rest of the year was unfortunately one of the driest periods on record, turning LA into a tinderbox. Then, a few days ago, the seasonal Santa Ana winds began to howl, setting the stage for the perfect firestorm that we see today. Now, Donald Trump has long blamed wildfires on the government not doing enough controlled burns or removing dry vegetation, but he's half right at best. For over a century, the US government has prohibited indigenous peoples in the region from doing controlled burns, which are meant to remove dry vegetation that could act like kindling. But California ended its ban on controlled burning by 2019, and California state officials started working with indigenous tribes to manage the forests. This was a positive step, but in the fall of 2024, the federal government stopped controlled burns in California. The US Forestry Service feared that in such dry conditions, even a controlled burn could spiral out of control. And the warmer weather and drought severely impacted the water levels in Los Angeles County. And the right wing has accused LA Mayor Bass of lowering the budget for firefighters. The left wing has blamed her for sending more resources to the police. And they're both probably right. Bass's budget raised salaries for firefighters, but the overall budget decreased by about 2%. Meanwhile, the LAPD's budget went up by about 7%. But of course, natural disasters amplified by climate change are increasingly dangerous and difficult to prepare for. That's why residents and insurance companies are scrambling. Now, under the California Fair Claim Settlement Practices Act, an insurer has 15 days to acknowledge it received a notice of a claim. An insurer has 40 days to accept or deny a claim in whole or in part. If the insurer doesn't deny or accept, it has to explain what additional information the company needs from the claimant. If the insurer continues to investigate the claim after 40 days, then it must provide you with a written update on the status of the claim every 30 days. An insurer has 15 days to respond to every communication from an insured that reasonably suggests a response is necessary, and the response must include facts the insurance company is relying upon. And the insurer is required to provide as a complete response as possible. And once an insurance company and the claimant agree to pay a claim, the company has 30 days to tender the payment. And if you're in this situation, make contemporaneous notes about all your conversations that you have with an insurance adjuster, local first responders, and local government. Take video and photos of the contents of your home to make it easier to prove what you own. Obviously, you have to do that before the fire strikes. And if your photographs have been destroyed, ask friends and family for photographs they've taken inside of the home, which will help you identify the elements of the home, which should be covered under your policy if you want to rebuild. Now look, I'm sure there's gonna be a lot of finger pointing, looking to acute causes and looking for someone to blame, but given the overall conditions, I'm not sure that there's anything anyone could have done, but you know, I'm just a lawyer, so don't take my word for it. I'm sure there will be new facts and new theories as things progress. But what we know for sure is that the damage is immense. AccuWeather chief meteorologist Jonathan Porter said, quote, "The total damage and economic loss from this wildfire disaster could reach nearly 4% of the annual GDP of the state of California. Analysts project total economic losses of $50 billion to $150 billion, and that's gonna make the wildfires the costliest fires in US history, and there's no end in sight. As of right now, none of the 5 fires have been contained." Now, it goes without saying that California needs all the help that it can get, and I hope you'll join me in donating what you can to relief efforts. I've already donated to the Larry Ellison Malibu Beach Home Relief Fund because it was the billionaires who were hit the hardest. Obviously, I'm just kidding. I've already donated $10,000 to the California Community Foundation, which is providing immediate relief and will continue to provide support on a long-term basis. If you'd feel like donating as well, there's a link to that down in the description. And none of this would be possible without support from today's sponsor, Nebula, but more about them in a bit. Now, not only do victims in California need all the financial help they can get, the state needs all the manpower it can muster to fight the fires, and hundreds of firefighters from Canada and Mexico are crossing the border to help. And even Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky offered to send 150 firefighters to help out. But the volunteers that might be the most shocking of all are the over 1,000 prison inmates on the front lines fighting the blaze, many of whom are risking their lives for as little as $5.80 a day in a state where the minimum wage is $16.50. Now, how is that legal? Well, you can find out in the companion video to this one, which is exclusively available on today's sponsor, Nebula.
On Nebula, you can watch all of your videos ad-free and early, because our videos always go up on Nebula first, plus there's tons of exclusive content. And for limited time, you can get a lifetime membership. You can buy once and then never again. It's the greatest deal of all. And we were so fascinated by the incarcerated firefighters that we made an exclusive separate video about them. We felt like it wouldn't work here on YouTube, especially since we keep getting demonetized, but Nebula was the perfect place to host it. So you can sign up and go watch it now. And if you're new here, Nebula includes tons of exclusive videos from me, original series from your favorite people, movies, plays, classes, and more. I've heard it described as Netflix for people that like trains, with your favorites like Johnny Harris, Neo, Jetlag, Real Engineering, Real Life Lore, and your most favorite LegalEagle. You can watch exclusives like my feature-length documentary, Bad Law Words Good, other Nebula exclusive content like my full-length interview with the screenwriter of My Cousin Vinny, and obviously our video about prison labor as well. Because what's truly special about Nebula is that it's a creator-owned platform built by me and other YouTubers and podcasters, and because it's a subscription service, we get to work on larger, higher budget productions than we ever could anywhere else. It's becoming the answer to the question, how do you get Hollywood-level production value without Hollywood-level BS? And for those of you that want to share everything Nebula has to offer with your family and friends, Nebula is now offering annual gift cards. So if you sign up using my link that's on screen right now, you can give a year of Nebula to a friend for 40% off the yearly subscription. That's a year of the best content for just $36. And that's a gift that you can give to yourself, because you deserve it as well. So get 40% off of you or a friend's yearly subscription for just $36 a year, or you can check out the lifetime deal where for $300 you can get access to Nebula forever. We're investing in more big concept, high octane Nebula originals, and your lifetime subscription goes towards that investment. In a way, lifetime is the best possible deal of all. But either way, you'll get access to my videos early, access to exclusives, and support the ambitious projects that my friends and I are working on our own streaming site. So sign up now and get you or a friend 40% off of Nebula at $36 a year, or get the incredible lifetime deal by clicking on the link below. And special thanks to Nebula for making this video and the donation possible. Then go out there and support California, or I will see you in court.